Hi, I'm Lily Rubeck. I'm going to be reading to you Soldier Poet King, and this is Chapter 2, Pastries and Pieces. Let's get into it. Olivia was a hard-working woman. She almost always has her dark amber orange burnt hair up, and she wore a pretty yellow lace dress. She was stunning, her bright eyes shining with the power of 1,000 suns, her hair falling perfectly to frame her face. Olivia spent most of her time either baking or reading. She was a very intelligent and the most patient and caring soul that Evan knew. As the boys threw open the door of Pastries and Pieces, a small and warm ringing of a bell attached to the door echoed. "Olivia!" Will made his entrance gaily. He spun around the middle of the room, throwing and twiddling his arms up in the air. The young lady would perk up, slightly startled by the sudden noise. She would not look amused at first, but soon her face drew a small smile as she made eye contact with her husband. She would be ringing up her last customer in line at this time. "Thank you, sir. Please, come again," she would tell the man, probably a few years younger than Will, as he grabbed his baked goods and began to head for the door. Evan seemed taken aback by this man. He had this weird gut feeling about him, as if he radiated some sort of negative energy. He would furrow his eyebrows, looking him up and down. The man would almost immediately return the stare, something that Prince Evan was not used to. Evan would take note of the man, his light purple top, his pointed shoes, and his satchel that he wore around his chest. He wore a dark hat that messed up his hair, and his eyes were chilling and deep, and he seemed pale, like really pale. He did not seem to have woken up on the right side of the bed this morning. Meanwhile, Will would have his hands resting on the bakery cabinet, getting his musty fingerprints all over the glass. He would pop up as Olivia stood there, giggling at the sight of him. Olivia would only just notice the prince now. "Oh my goodness, wait, Evan? Hello! I'm so sorry I didn't see you there." She would quickly make her way out from behind the counter to meet him, snapping him out of his thoughts. She would run up to him and hug him tightly. "Ah, I missed you! You look so much older," she would imply, patting his head like he was some toddler. "Oh, come on," Evan would begin. "It hasn't been that long." He would take a second before embracing Liv's hug. Eventually, Evan, William, and Olivia would take a seat around one of the yellow little tables at the bakery and talk. They would sit and appreciate each other's presences, taking a moment to really breathe it all in. They hadn't seen each other in such a long time, and it was so nice for them to catch up. They would sit for what felt like hours listening to Will ramble about some story from his and Liv's honeymoon, standing up and jumping in the air as if he was acting out the scene. Of course, Olivia knew what would happen next, but she would merely just remain silent, shaking her head and giggling as he made a fool of himself in front of the prince. Halfway through Will's story, Evan finally came to the realization that he had really missed them, and that he was insanely thankful that they had remembered about his big day. "And then I told her, 'Olivia, why would we want to mine for gold when they could mine rocks and stones?' And she said, 'Because, Will, we're going home.'" William would throw his arms up in the air, getting at the end of his hour-and-a-half long story. He would motion towards Olivia, who would just smile and nod her head cutely. Evan would let out a reassuring giggle along with a soft sigh, looking his buddy dead in the eyes. William's eyes always had some sort of glow to them. He never really noticed or knew how to describe them. It was like the way he looked at Liv. The prince wished, too, for someone to look at him the way those two did. Suddenly, a loud and quite frankly hollow-sounding bell could be heard throughout the bakery and village. It was the fountain bell, a royal awakening call that informed all of the townspeople of different things, such as an arrival or an event. It was only used by higher-ups and the royal family. The bell caught the attention of the three. Commotion could be heard starting up from outside of the bakery walls. People stopped whatever they were busy with and started flooding the town hall for answers to why the bell was rung. Evan would furrow his eyebrows. "Well, I guess we should see what that's all about." He would stand up to look over at Liv and Will, who were just as taken aback as he was. "Hey, wait a minute," Liv would speak up. "I have a weird feeling about this. Your parents aren't supposed to be back for another couple hours or so. She would look away from the prince, taking his hand gently. Here. Olivia would hastily walk back behind the bakery counter, and she would pull out somewhat of a dusty, hooded jacket from outside of the box hidden behind the wooden counter. Put this on, she would insist. I don't think it's a good idea for you to go walking around today with your crown on top of your head like that. Maybe try to blend in a bit? Just for now. Both Will and Evan would appear taken aback by Liv, worryingly taking her words wisely. Will would stand there watching as the prince set his crown, a shimmery black base with a similar, if not the same, rhinestones as those to his mother's, into his satchel, and lift up the jacket up over his shoulders. His arms would be used to prop the hood up to cover his hair as he stood cringing a little at the fact that he was probably going to tangle it. With that, the three of them would stand up and leave the bakery, not in any sort of the same rush that the rest of the village seemed to be in. By the time the trio had reached the town hall, a bell struck loudly. It was noon. The day was halfway over, but there was still a half of a day left. By the time the trio reached the fountain bell, they watched as a boy coated in green stood atop the fountain. He wore big, circular glass and oversized goggles that covered the majority of his face, and his smile was filled with pride and passion. The boy stood tall, and despite his scars, he spoke of kingdoms and stocks. Who is that guy? William asked. He hadn't seen this man before. Evan would glance at the boy. He knew this boy very well. Garrett. His name is Garrett of Irohaken. The Kingdom of Jade? Evan would mumble under his breath, just loud enough for Will and Olivia to hear. Garrett? I haven't heard of him before, especially one of Irohaken. Liv would squint at the boy elevated above her, making eye contact with the kid in green. Olivia would perk up, startled by the sudden movement of this man, as he would jump up and down fearlessly from the fountain, making room for himself in the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, calm down. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering why I'm here, Garrett would begin, pivoting flawlessly and smirking as he pointed towards a group of single ladies who would kill for a man like him. Evan would roll his eyes at Garrett. His arms would cross themselves, and he gave the Jade Prince a cold expression. Garrett would chuckle. I'm sure you all have heard about the delay in the arrival of your beloved king and queen. The three would look at each other. Delayed arrival? William would repeat, a questioning look on his face. Both Will and Liv would look at Evan, who appeared to just be as confused as they were. But do not worry. With today's event, your faithful friend, Garrett of Irohaken, has been asked to monitor tonight's events. Not only that, but monitor your beloved Prince Evan. Garrett would pick up his goggles, resting them on top of his head. Evan's body would stiffen out as he heard those words. Monitor what? I'm 16. I'm fully capable of monitoring myself. Who the heck does this guy think he is? Is he trying to embarrass me or something? And with that being said, it is brought to my attention that our prince has been seen around town. If anyone has seen him, please refer back to me or a guard so we can get him back to the castle for his, Garrett would inhale, very special day. Thank you so much. And with that, the crowd would split. Half would leave to go get ready for the festivities that had been moved, and the other half would stay to drool and fawn over the Green Prince. Evan? Will would turn around and tilt his head at his friend. What's all that about? We better get you home. Looks like somebody hired a babysitter. Liv would roll her eyes, not too fond of this new green dude. Who does this guy think he is? You're not a baby, she would defend. Evan would sigh, his head in a whirl and his stomach in a knot. Why is he really here? Why him out of all people? Jerk. Why did he just decide to change everything? He didn't even talk to me. This was supposed to be my special day, yet I get no say in it. Evan, are you okay? Liv would wave her hand in front of the prince's face as it got paler. Evan could feel his fingertips start to tingle, and he began to notice black dots in his vision as he painfully continued to overthink. And soon enough, Evan would lose his balance, falling backwards for a second that felt so much longer.